We don't really care if Elijah feels pain or not. All we care about is if he processes it.
Because there's already probably for me a good amount of shame in just how my brain works.
So it may be, and again, whatever, 25 years from now, your grandson has tennis shoe, sandals, tennis shoe, and you feel pain about it. Okay. And if you do, you do. And we're not going to be like, no, Elijah, you're too mature now. You're too spiritual. You're too old. You should not be experiencing that. Well, okay, so shoot him, I guess. I mean, he feels pain, so that's the end of Elijah.
And so for her to just be like, it's just you. It's good. I'm good with you. I'm good with how your brain works. I love you and all of your crazy, quote unquote. It's like, I'm good with that. For me, that's all I need a lot of times is just to be like, hey, this is okay. I'm okay with it.
I probably get hit with shame just as much today as I did 30 years ago. The difference is I process it in 10 seconds. So if you add all that up, it's a completely different universe for me.
Hi there, friends. Before we dive in, we want to let you know something important. While this podcast does feature a marriage and family therapist, we are not your therapist. This is a space for informational and educational purposes only. We're here to have a deep conversation over coffee. If you find yourself feeling stuck or overwhelmed, we encourage you to reach out to a trusted therapist, counselor, coach in your area who can give you personalized support you deserve. Because let's be real, life is way too hard to go at it alone, and your emotions are way too valuable to ignore. Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get to the good stuff.
Hello, world.
Hi, friends. Well, today we have a special guest on our podcast, and he is not a newbie to this. Elijah, we've had you on several times and love it when you jump in. Sometimes you're in town when that happens, and today you're not. You're at home in California. But welcome, Elijah Runyan. Elijah is a Connection coach, but he's also now the director of our coaching certification program, which is just means the world to us. And these topics that we talk about a lot. And so today we thought we would jump in to the topic of being neurodivergent. And, it's becoming a more common term. And yet I think for a lot of us, it's still that, what in the world does that mean? And is it contagious? So Dr. Will, why don't you give us a definition of neurodivergent?
Yeah, well, one of my missions is to change our view of ourselves as individuals and other people. This is probably many centuries, who knows, millennia, that we have pathologized humans and said, oh, you're different in whatever way. Therefore, you are bad. You are wrong. You're different than me. Therefore, I judge you. And of course, there have been horrific things throughout history that have been done to individuals who are different. The term neurodivergent, the root words of it, neuro is just nerve endings, and then divergent just means different. So you experience something differently than, I guess you would say, 51% of the population, because by definition, that would make you in the minority. That would make you different than the norm. And of course, sometimes it's 80% of the population or 92% of the population, whatever. I always give the example of the client years ago who his favorite ice cream was Brussels sprouts ice cream. He would blend up Brussels sprouts in a blender. And it had to be Breyer's vanilla bean, all natural, whatever it's called, ice cream. And then he would add some cream to that as well. He experienced joy about that. That sounds horrible to me. I don't. That's just, there's zero appeal to it. It's a pain experience, even to think about, a little bit of fear mixed in there too. For him, it's a joy experience. Well, that makes him neurodivergent. I think if some ice cream company started mass marketing their Brussels sprouts ice cream, it would not do well. Now, surely they would find at least 3 other people that like it, but I don't think it's going to become a bestseller. So by definition, that means that he is neurodivergent. His nerve endings, the pleasure center of his brain is activated with Brussels sprouts ice cream. That's not true of the majority of the population. So we can label him neurodivergent. And I get it. It's like, oh, that's ice cream. It doesn't matter. Well, everything's the same way. There are things that I experience that are different than 51% or more of the population. There are things that Phyllis does, things that Elijah does. And if we can be gentle, certainly with ourselves, but with each other, and that's the power of the ooh, to be able to go, oh, okay. Dude, I hear you. You experience this differently than me. And you're not wrong. I'm not right. Vice versa. That's just what happens for you. You, again, whatever. You love Brussels sprouts ice cream. You feel joy about that. Okay. I hear you. I don't want to eat it because I don't feel any joy in it. And you're not allowed to judge me and go, what? You don't like Brussels sprouts ice cream? Well, I don't. I feel zero joy. And again, it's really easy for us to see that with something like ice cream. Well, it's true with hundreds of thousands, millions of other things that are experiences, characteristics of humans around us. So if we could shift this and stop labeling people, stop judging people, and again, a lot of times it's just a matter of raising your eyebrows and oohing, who's going, oh, okay. So that's different. Your experience is different than mine. I hear you. Whatever. And now we can be friends. Now we can relax and enjoy life together, and we don't have to constantly be on edge thinking that we have to categorize things. We have to categorize humans and figure out, is Elijah one of those people, one of those neurodivergent, one of those crazy people that we have to, I guess, put him in a straitjacket or something. And instead of just recognizing that, oh, all right, Elijah experiences things differently than I do.
You know, I know, Elijah, this has been a conversation and a topic that's probably you have touched more frequently or more often, especially in the last few years, and just trying to grow in your own self. And so that ice cream one, it's like, tell me maybe a different example of how this has played out for you.
Yeah. So a couple years ago when you guys came here and you shared that definition and you started talking about it, was completely transformative for me, in that I thought my experience was everyone's experience. And so for me, it manifests in like what people would call probably OCD, like a very like order, like things have to be very orderly. And so that night I woke up at like 2 a.m. and this like reel of my life started playing in my head. It was so wild. And I've shared it before, but like to where I saw myself moving around the house, and things that were, for example, like there was a stack of games on the table and they were situated on one end of the table, fairly neat and nice. And I went over and moved the games to a different part of the table, and I didn't know. I'm like, that's just normal, like, because this is where they're supposed to be. That's how, I felt in my brain. And you compound that over millions of situations with 4 kids and liking to host. And it's just like, I didn't realize that I was moving through life putting out pain experiences. I thought everybody was doing that, except for what would happen is I would walk in the door of our home, and I would experience a huge loss of identity because they weren't doing that. The other people, and so how I felt was like, well, they're experiencing this pain, but they're intentionally not fixing it. And so it felt like a hurt. It was a hurt experience for me. Like, these people are almost like intentionally hurting me. It was wild. And so when you explained it that way, and I realized, oh, this is wow. And I began to just see that reel in all of these moments where me putting out pain experiences was keeping me from the most high value of my heart, which is connecting with my people. And I would have to do these things before I could go watch a movie. Or like, for me, one big pain experience for my family is that like I literally have to clean the dishes before I sit down for dinner. Like I'm like, but that's what you do, right? You clean the kitchen before, and that's how my brain worked. I thought everyone did that, but instead they were having dinner without me. And so there's this disconnect. And so once I realized that, I was like, holy smokes, this is just happening for me. This isn't happening for the rest of the people in my house. And it allowed me to have grace for my people, one, and then grace for myself, two, and start to learn how to process the pain experience that it was. And it actually took me a while to figure out that a lot of times it was a lonely experience, which was wild because I'm like, now I realize like nobody else experiences this, and this is lonely. And it's sad too, because the game should be at this end of the table, not at that end of the table. Yeah, so that's how it manifested with me and my life. And what's been beautiful, and I shared this in the cohort the other day, is like I've been practicing when I see a pain experience, something that's out of order. I've been practicing making the decision: is this something that I need to fix, quote unquote, or is it just something I need to process? And this is a random example, but like my son, he cleaned his room the other day and he has a whole bunch, he loves Jordans. So he has a whole bunch of Jordans and he had his Jordans lined up, but they were in the middle of his lineup of his Jordans were his flip-flops. So it went sneaker, sneaker, flip-flop, sneaker. And now I have a decision. Is this like, son, you need to put your shoes, it's got to be sneaker, 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 then flip-flop? Or do I just process the pain and be like, that's how he likes them? But before it was like almost a morality issue. But what the coolest thing is, like, this happened not that long ago. I had walked by this table in our house lots of times. And the final time I walked, I'm like, has that been like that for a while? And there was a pile of things on the table, all askew. And they're like, yeah, it's been there for like 2 weeks since my birthday. And I was like, I didn't even notice it, which would never have happened before. Never. Like, never. But I didn't notice it because I've been processing the pain and getting identity from my wife and seeing me. And so, anyways, that's how it's been manifesting in my life, which is kind of cool. That's like, it's starting to put out the pain by processing.
Yeah. And, we always say we don't really care if Elijah feels pain or not. All we care about is if he processes it. So it may be, and again, whatever, 25 years from now, your grandson has tennis shoe, sandals, tennis shoe, and you feel pain about it. Okay. And if you do, you do. And we're not going to be like, no, Elijah, you're too mature now. You're too spiritual. You're too old. You should not be experiencing that. Well, okay, so shoot him, I guess. I mean, he feels pain, so that's the end of Elijah. But instead, just that you would just process it. And, you've heard me say many times, I probably get hit with shame just as much today as I did 30 years ago. The difference is I process it in 10 seconds. So if you add all that up, it's a completely different universe for me. And then part of what I wanted to add, and I hope our listeners get that this is the real nuts and bolts, where the rubber meets the road. Because again, with pathologizing humans, we tend to think, oh, that's people that, whatever, live in Detroit and New York City. They're neurodivergent. They deal with, psychological disorders. No, it's all of us, or something's happening. But what happens there, and I'm conjecturing, but I know you well enough to know. So by the time you sit down at the dinner table, you're sitting with 5 pain sources, people who have disregarded you, who don't care about you, who don't care to help you, to be in teamship, partnership with you. How's dinner going to go? Elijah's walking in the room with these unkind, insensitive people, which none of that is happening for them. I'm just talking about what Elijah's experiencing. And if he's able to just process the pain of, again, whatever it is, the dishes that, he feels compelled to wash, it changes the whole dynamic.
Absolutely. And I used to think, even after that kind of realization, I used to think that what I needed was partnership in putting out the pain point. That's what I used to think I needed. But then I had this thing happen like a couple of months ago where I was doing the dishes and I had processed and waited till after dinner this time. So that was great. But I was doing the dishes and my wife was sitting across the bar and I'm doing the dishes and I'm like, this is painful. It's kind of lonely. Like she's just sitting there. We're talking, but she's not helping me. Right. And so I'm doing it and I dry a dish and I put it down and I turn back around and she's at the sink finishing the dishes. And in that moment, it was a pain experience. because it's just in my brain, and this feels so weird. It feels like I feel crazy sometimes, but in my brain, because I wasn't the one putting out the pain, it didn't resolve the same. And what I realized in that moment is I didn't actually need partnership in putting out the pain, because that's not what I needed, because I actually enjoy doing it. Like, I enjoy vacuuming. It's a joy experience for me. To put that pain out is a joy experience. All I needed was her to regard my experience and to process it with her. And when she does that, the amount of I'm really like, identity in your experience, having someone not think you're crazy, not only be okay with your experience, but be like curious about it, step into it with you, is so healing, because I feel crazy most of the time. And when somebody goes, "Oh, I see that. Interesting. Well, yeah, thank you for doing that." Or I can see, like, when she just regards me, the pain reduces. And I have found that even when I get a lot of identity from my wife and kids, even not around my pain experiences, but when I am full of identity, when that tank is full, the pain experiences don't hit the same way. Like, my neurodivergence doesn't fire. It's almost like it eases that tension in my brain. I can't explain it. I don't know. It's just like, but when there's a loss of identity in other areas of our life, I find that the pain experiences are heightened for me. And, I'm like moving around the house, like trying to put it all out, which I just found very interesting. But anyways.
So I have a question, and I want our listeners to kind of understand the scenario. So maybe they have questions too. Come back to the moment you're at the sink, you're washing the dishes, which is customary. She is sitting at the counter talking to you, but you feel there's pain in something. You mentioned that. And then she came over and started doing the dishes, but that created more pain, sounds like. So slow that whole scenario down. Tell me more about the pain that you were experiencing as you were washing the dishes and she was sitting at the counter.
Yeah, so it was there was hurt, sad, and lonely, I think, as I was washing the dishes. It was like I had cooked the meal and now I'm cleaning up. And so it was like, it was probably a loss of identity at some level. Like, oh, this is what he does, And so it was like, I have some fear in communicating. My wife is not a helpful person. We do very well at splitting up the logistics of our household. She does so much. So I just want to communicate that. But I think it was just like almost a taken for granted. Like, this is just what he does. This is his brain's a little, so he does it. So it was hurt, sad, lonely, probably all of it, the whole pain thing. Because I had been doing the dishes for a little bit and there was no like, hey, want some help or any of that. So that was firing. And then I'm not exactly sure what the pain, it wasn't more pain when I turned around and she did it. It was just a different pain. It was like the pain of being unseen and not partnered with in the task was gone. But it was almost like a sad experience that I wasn't the one getting to take care of it. It was very weird. I was hard to, I even don't really understand it very well, but it's like the vacuuming thing. Like there's much more joy or a different joy when I clean than when my family cleans. They're both joy experiences because it's clean, but it fires different in my brain. It's like, it's just a higher or a different joy experience. So it was almost like painful. Like I didn't get the joy experience of seeing the dish clean and scraping all the stuff. It's just, I know it sounds crazy. It feels crazy, but so.
She was sitting talking to you, and the next thing she's washing some dishes. Did you ever find out what happened with her that brought her from the chair to the sink?
Ooh, no, some guilt that I didn't. I was so kind of overwhelmed with that it was still a pain experience. I was like, I did express that to her. In that moment we were talking, I was like, babe, the wildest thing just happened to me. I was like, I don't understand it at all. And I was like, it was a pain experience, you weren't helping me. And then it was a pain experience that you did help me. I'm so confused. And so we did have that dialogue. She's so wonderful. She just sat in it with me in what I felt like was a crazy moment. And, it's like, what's happening? She just really we dialogued about it because it was so odd to me because what I thought would put out the pain didn't.
Yeah. I hear that. So now, when you were first standing there, are you able to say to Christina what's happening for you in that moment? Because if I'm hearing you right, the pain experience was a lonely experience.
Yeah, since the realization, since all this, we've had a lot of really good moments, and I have gotten really good at expressing pain. I didn't in that moment before she came over. I don't know why, but I didn't in that moment. I didn't tell her. But she's also like, I think maybe I didn't because some of my fear is that she is a fixer. And this is something we've had to work on a lot. It's like me just expressing pain doesn't mean she has to fix it. Right. But that's been because I wasn't communicating what was happening for me. I was communicating through the emotions. Right. So she would feel it and then she would jump in. So it might have been a reaction to that. She might have been feeling it because she has done that. We've been married almost 20 years. That's kind of our history. She feels me and then she jumps to action. So that may have been the.
Well, and I know you know this, but just following the Connection Codes protocols, you would just convey that, I'm getting hit with some loneliness here. She does the 3 phrases. What's happening, babe? What I'm missing? You process the emotion, and then she does the 4th phrase. She goes, so what do you need? Well, then that sets it up for Elijah to go, would you partner with me in doing the dishes here? And it's such a connect. And Christine has the right of refusal. Every human does. She has the right to go, nope, I'm not doing it, which will have an effect. But so, of course, as we train Connection Codes coaches, we're trying to get them to be purists. As you get better and better with the tools, with the language, it becomes broader, I think, where it's not exactly the perfect 3 phrases and the 4th phrase added at the end, but they always work. It doesn't matter if you've been connection coding for, 3 weeks or 3 years or 10 years. To get back to that, because it sets up that whole dynamic of connection. And, if you're able to do that in that moment, I'd be curious. Of course, we can never rerun the exact same scenario, but that'd be, I'm always wanting that as a researcher to go, okay, now cut, take it from the top, and now let's redo it and see what happens with Elijah and Christina if we do it this other way. And that's what we're doing in sessions a lot with couples when they're, bickering with each other and fighting. And, that, of course, way back to the early research was to say, hey, what if you tried it this way? Could you say this to her? Could you ask her this? And, of course, getting to observe that and seeing it change the dynamic so drastically.
What was fascinating, though, is if she would have asked me what I needed in that moment, I would have said partnership with doing the dishes. But in this moment, that's not what actually I needed, I can tell you. What I needed was regard. Identity. But I didn't know that. And now that was what was such a light bulb moment for me, is like, I thought what I needed was partnership in putting out the pain, which I do think sometimes that is, especially with kids and stuff. You're like, hey, this is a household that we all live here. So please don't leave your dishes in the sink, put them away. But like in that moment, I didn't need that. And I thought I did.
So what does that look like, especially for our listeners, when you say what I thought I needed partnership in the dishes, but then when that actually happened, that didn't relieve the pain. But now you figured out what you really needed was regard. And what does that mean? Like, what does that practically look like in that particular scenario?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, in that particular scenario, I think if, I did the 3 phrases, she oohed me and then asked me what I needed, I think what it would have looked like is I just would love you to say, hey, I see that you're doing the dishes. Love that. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for who you are. I see that that's a pain experience for you. So some sort of just acknowledgement that I'm experiencing something that she's not experiencing. And that would be played out, however many times throughout our day, just a recognition that that my experience is valid and real and I'm not crazy. That it's like, because there's already probably for me a good amount of shame in just how my brain works. I mean, I don't know, just is like the fact, like, and I experienced it yesterday. It's like I walk into the house and I'm like, I wish that didn't bother me. I feel like not adequate that this is bothering me. And so for her to just be like, it's just you. It's good. I'm good with you. I'm good with how your brain works. Like I love you and all of your crazy, quote unquote. It's like, I'm good with that. For me, that's all I need a lot of times is just to be like, hey, this is okay. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Would that be from just her or from your children as well?
Oh man, if it came from my children, that would be huge.
How do you cross over that bridge? How do you communicate to your children what you need in a way that makes sense to them?
Great question. Do we have Echo to call real quick? Be honest, I'm still figuring that out. I don't really know. I don't always do great at it, if I'm honest. I try to communicate what's happening for me, the pain, without an expectation that they do something about it. But yeah, I don't know. Help me. How should I do it? That's a good question.
I do think that it gets back to those are really valuable conversations to have around the dinner table, to have just like, I'm thinking back to, man, when our kids were all at home and younger, and when we started figuring out just where we got to a place where we could talk about things that were painful for dad, and that it became a conversation where it normalized it in a sense. And I think that was really valuable for our kids, where it's like, oh, this is just dad, but that's not a bad thing. Like, as in, I remember, and Glenn's been really open about this, just the pain that he experiences in cobblestones or cracks in the sidewalk. And I have this memory. Now our kids are all grown and married and have their own kids. But I remember this was a particular birthday after our kids were all grown. And I think it was for my birthday. And we went, the restaurant we chose to get into it, it was cobblestones. And our son immediately turned to his dad as an adult man, right? My son was now an adult husband, man with kids, but he turned to his dad and he goes, "Oh, Dad, cobblestones. Maybe there's another way in. You want to walk?" And it was like just the acknowledgement is so big. And of course, Glenn felt seen, and he verbalized it before Glenn even said pain, 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 or fear, fear, fear. Like, and so then Glenn was able to go, "No, I'll be all right." Right. And then was able to walk across the cobblestone entryway and go into the restaurant. But I think about those moments came because there were many conversations when they were younger that, hey, that's just a pain experience for dad.
Yeah.
And there was no making fun of or being annoyed by or like rolling of the eyes like, "Oh, brother, that's just dad." It was more like, hey, that's a pain experience for dad. And there was never a dad's whacked out kind of conversation. It's more a lot of compassion. That's like, it's really hard for dad. And it's just those conversations. I just feel like I have memories of those conversations around the dinner table.
Yeah, and I just have to throw in, just as a caveat, it's just so important that Sky didn't have to do that. He doesn't have to. He's only aware of me because he adores me, because I mean so much to him. But it's not his responsibility, because I just want to make sure the listeners aren't hearing that, oh my gosh, so now, because Phyllis lived that way for years, where she's trying to stay 10 feet ahead of me and, life's road, both literal and figurative, ahead of me. And she can't, and she was exhausted. And there's no way she could even do it, because my experiences are organic. They're inside of me. Well, how is she going to figure that out? How is she going to anticipate my nerve endings, my different nerve experiences? She can't. And again, will she be able to accurately guess pick a number, 6 out of 10. Well, maybe, but she's going to miss 4 of them. So it's very important that the individual is just able to convey it in the moment. It's pretty bonus material when your teammates are able to be aware that, oh, okay, this is probably a tough one for you. We travel a lot, and I'm so systems oriented that everywhere we go, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to set up my system. Well, we travel so much that I'm resetting up a system, sometimes every few days. When we were in Mexico City, we stayed in 3 places or 4, 3 different places. Well, we were in Cancun, so we stayed in 4 places in less than 2 weeks. So every place we go, I'm like, oh goodness, how do I get my system, my universe in order so that I can function? And, Phyllis, I think, is just entertained by it because she doesn't function that way. She doesn't get overwhelmed by that. She's just like, oh, here's a chest of drawer. I'll put my clothes in it. I'm like, yeah, but is that chest of drawer been cleaned out? Are there any dead bugs in it? And, so now it becomes, if I let it, it very easily becomes an hour-and-a-half project just to put my clothes in this drawer. Whereas Phyllis is just like, put the clothes in the drawer. There we go. That took 45 seconds. So she's just aware of me, and she's just like, well, that's what happens for him. But that all originates from me verbalizing it, being able to say it in the moment. And I spent most of my life hiding these things. Initially not even aware of them, but then once I became aware of them, thinking, well, if she ever saw the real me, she would leave because this is a freaky guy and he's pretty dysfunctional. And the opposite was actually true, but I didn't know that for many, many years. That actually now she's even more drawn to me. It doesn't mean it makes sense to her. I mean, I experience things that she's like, wait, what? So that's what happens for you there? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, oh, okay. But now, I don't like saying never with human behavior, but now it never escalates. Now we're just like, okay, this is what happens for me is different than you. And it just is. And we don't care anymore.
And when Glenn referred to, like, I used to try to run ahead of him, that was the early years of marriage where I didn't understand. He wasn't expressing it in like, this is painful.
Right.
It was like, this is the correct way to do it. And so you need to do it the correct way.
Yeah.
So we hurt each other a lot in the early days because we didn't understand any of this. Like, we did not understand what the disorder of the psyche. We didn't understand neurodivergency. Like, we didn't understand any of these things. And so we didn't understand emotion. So for him to express pain, we didn't even know that existed. It was just a right or wrong. It's black or white. It's just that simple. So his way was right, mine was wrong. And so then I tried to adapt to make my patterns the same as his and the routines the same as his. And that's what he's referencing when he said that I tried to stay ahead of him to keep everything perfectly lined up. And it got harder the more kids we had.
Yeah.
And it didn't even always work. So it was like such an internal thing for him that in the secrecy of it, because of course he felt so much shame about it. And then when it was kind of all laid out on the table, which was in the first decade of our marriage, because I think Skip Gross was a big part of that. So that was the first decade of our marriage. Then it was all of a sudden, oh, okay, there's something going on here. But I would say it took 20 years of our marriage before we understood clearer what is happening in the psyche. And so I think about even some of the stories that you've shared, Elijah, of what a huge shift your whole family has made. And I can't imagine what it was like, for Christina to have to make sure the house was perfect before you came home, knowing otherwise you were going to
dysregulate.
That was the thing, is like, she would do that and it would be like she didn't do it. I'd just come home and I'd be like, and now I'm realizing it's not because I really want the house clean, although I do. It's that it's painful when it's not. And so when it's clean, it's like, and so she would feel disregarded. She's like, didn't you see what I did? I'm like, oh yeah, it's great. But I notice when it's painful, and where there's been a rub, what you said to me, Phyllis, after that meeting was like, your family needs to get really good at you just saying pain and not having to do anything about it. And so The hard part for me now is what are things that are like part of taking care of the house as a family and order, and what's right, and what is my neurodivergence, and that balance. That is really hard.
That's part of the crucial aspect of the connection because, we've shared many times, but my straw is lined up with the logo, and that feels right to me. And some people, I'm not going to name any names, it's like, what the heck? This is undrinkable. It's probably poison by now. We don't know. So, and for Phyllis, this doesn't even exist. I mean, she is unable to experience any joy about this, and she's unable to experience any pain about this. She just doesn't. Her thought is there a liquid in there I can drink? And is the lid on so it won't spill? Very, very functional, very, very utilitarian. Whereas for me, it's all it's also that, but then there's also the emotion. If you went in and looked at Phyllis's closet, we'll just do a pop quiz. How many different types of hangers do you have?
I was thinking about that a minute ago.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the answer is?
Oh, I probably have 10 different types of hangers.
Please. I'll bet you $1 it's 20.
Okay, here's what's funny. Just for the sake of our listeners, because we sold our house, we live as nomads. So we basically, when we're in the barn, which is where we are right now.
Barn dough.
Barn
sounds like you're going to sleep on hay.
Apartment in the barn on our daughter's property, our son-in-law and daughter's property. We now have just a rack. So isn't that what they're called? Like a clothing rack that is on wheels, right? So it's very small, as you can imagine. We don't have a closet anymore. But yet when we get here, I want to hang up my clothes and put them on the rack, and I'll use any hanger, thank you very much, that I can find to hang up my clothes. Yet our whole married life, you have had a perfect hanger system.
Well, that was my follow-up question. How many types of hangers do I have?
Right now?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, you have the exact same kind all the way across the board.
One. Right now, it's always.
You have one. Well, back in the day, you were color.
Well, that's true. They were color-coded. Yeah, I did convert because, but they're all identical except my sports jackets, which are heavier. And so I technically have 2 different types of hangers, but I only have 2 sports jackets. And that feels right. And again, seriously, it feels right to me. I look at Phyllis's clothes on all these, and again, I think I'm going to win this $1. And it feels wrong. It feels painful. I look at it and I'm just like, God does not approve of this.
You can't even wear those clothes.
Right. I mean, they're going to be damaged. And Phyllis is unable to experience pain about that. She feels no fear of the clothes. And occasionally she steals one of my hangers, which I always know. This is what's funny about Phyllis and the kids. They think that they've gotten away with something. I always know. I mean, exactly. My son, back when we had our property, he used my office one day just because it was convenient, which is fine. I was delighted that he did. But when we'd been traveling and I got back home and I just called him and I said, totally great if you did, but I'm just curious, did you use my office while we were out of town? And he goes, are you kidding me? And I said, what? And he goes, I took pictures and put everything back exactly the way it was. And I'm like, don't even bother. But it was funny. We just laughed. And he was like, I was so excited I was going to get away with this. He said, literally, I walked in, I took pictures of everything. And I'm like, that's a mission you can't accomplish. That's a mission impossible. And he's like, Dad, I was sure that I'd gotten away with it. And again, I didn't care at all. But I don't even know what it was, but I could just tell that something is different. So this guy was like, oh man, I thought I'd done it perfectly. So pretty fun. Yeah. So again, people may think we're being silly talking about hangers and whatever. These are real things. And everybody deals with something like this. And if I don't know how to process the pain, and when Phyllis steals my hangers, I'm able to just say to her, oh, sad. Somebody, and I never name names, but it's like, oh, sad. Somebody stole one of my hangers. we don't want to indict the guilty here. And it is a pain experience, but she's my friend, she's my partner, she's my lover, and okay, she stole one of my hangers, and I'll be fine.
That was the biggest realization, just as like in a whole. Yes, it was good for me to understand what's happening for me, but it really put into context the idea that everyone's experience is unique. And when you're okay with that, you can come with curiosity. When you think everyone's experience is your experience, you come with judgment. And that's where I felt I was losing identity, because I thought everybody's experience was the same and they were just being a jerk to me. But when I realized like this just doesn't fire for them at all, and there's things that fire for them that I'm like, it doesn't bother me. I don't care. And that just gives me incredible empathy for people and their experience. And it allows me to just sit in it with them and just be okay. Yeah, okay, great. I don't understand that. That's okay. But I can regard it. And so it's really helped me with others.
Right. And to not have to pathologize it. Because, I mean, seriously, and again, it sounds like a trivial thing, but sitting here, the idea of me putting my clothes on different types of hangers, I'd rather just walk around naked. I mean, let's just forego the clothes. Because, I mean, that's just undoable. But also on the other side, the idea of saying to Phyllis, okay, you have to have identical hangers always. She'd be like, what? Why would I bother with that? Why would I take the time? I have a shirt, I have a hanger, they match. And that makes perfect sense to her. And I would now argue that actually that's more sensible than the way I live. Although my systems are so tight that I do them so automatically and smoothly, they don't take up much extra time anymore. They used to. I used to need 33 hours a day just to get through my daily routine. Well, there ain't no such thing. Every day is 24 hours, whether you like it or not. And it was so exhausting for me as well. And I remember a therapist that I saw many, many years ago, and we just started talking about some of this. This is pre-connection codes, but he said, your life must be exhausting. And that just occurred to me, and there's a lot of identity in it. And I was like, yeah, it kind of is. Every day is impossible. Every day is impossible just on my own. And then if I live with other people who mess up my systems, life's impossible. It can't be done. Yeah.
Wow.
Again, that emotion all of human behavior is pushed by emotion. That emotion pushes me. If I don't process the emotion, it's going to be nasty, which is so much of what resulted for us for so many years. So I love it. It's just so powerful.
This is such a big topic, and I know we're getting to the end of our time, but if you're listening, I think that part of it is like, how would you sum it up? Because the way I would say it helped us so much to understand what was happening.
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest thing. And for Glenn to have the safety in this relationship where he can just express the pain, and that I don't take it on as mine. It's not my now pain, or it's not my responsibility to take away his pain, and to just make space and to follow that energy. So if he expresses and he does it in a teasing way, oops, someone stole my hanger, it's like, I don't argue. I don't get defensive. I just like, oh, wow, man, I wonder who came in here and would have gone through that. We kind of joke about it, but the old days, I was triggered and I panicked. I'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to take your hanger. I was out of hangers and I should have never touched your hangers, right? That would have been the old way of just response, where now it's just so helpful to be able to go, oh, he just needs to be regarded. Like he just needs to be heard. And I want to hear him even when he's teasing about it. Right. Yeah. And I think it's like the place to start. And if you're listening today and this is all new to you, welcome to the Connection Codes podcast. We want to start this journey with you. Like, I think Elijah's an incredible coach to connect with. Glenn is a great coach to connect with. You can connect with me if you're on the other side and you're going, how have you lived 43 years with someone who is neurodivergent? And because I think sometimes it's really like, Elijah, I think about how far you've come in a couple of years, and just how incredible it is to have language to the experience, have tools for your family to connect with you. It's changed your whole family, and it continues beyond just your kids and your wife. It's like your community and even your extended family, you know, within your siblings and your parents. It's a conversation. It's just so beautiful for them to understand. And so I think that's really beautiful and powerful. I know we want you to do the wheel for us. So before we completely run out of time, can we jump into that? And then do you have a way to kind of conclude it or put this all together for someone? That would be great.
Yeah. And could you do a wheel on, I guess, just your neurodivergence and your experience with neurodivergence? And you can do what you want, but I think that'd be really cool to hear.
Yeah, I think the first one hits is shame. It just feels shameful just to be in my brain a lot of times. Definitely some guilt that I don't always communicate what's happening for me, that I communicate through it. I still struggle with that. I get flooded. I just get hit with the pain. And if I haven't been regulating throughout the day, it just hits me hard and I emote. And there's a lot of guilt there. Sad there too, because I know it hurts my people. You know, it's pretty lonely often. And I think there's definitely fear in communicating what's happening in my brain, fear that people will think I'm crazy. Let's see. Hurt. I think sometimes this is going to sound interesting, but like I hurt my own feelings because I just don't process it well. And it's a pain experience that sometimes I can't not put out the pain. And it feels overwhelming. Like I don't want to, like I said to someone else the other day, like I annoy myself so much. Like I have to do all these things before I can sit down. Like I have to get my emotional support paper towel and I have to have my drink and and it's like, it's so annoying, you know, so that's a little painful. Anger that I didn't know this for so long, that it was such a disconnect between me and my wife and my kids, but lots of joy that I know it now, and joy that I get to be seen, and joy that I get to see others. That's just a huge joy point. So that's my wheel. And for me, honestly, just to wrap it all up, I was even in session with a couple last week, and it sounds so simple, but all they needed to do was regard each other's experience and it would change their whole marriage. All they had to do, like they just had to ooh each other. Like they were not safe for each other because their experience was the right experience and the others was the wrong experience. And that's just not real. Everyone's experience is theirs and it's all wrong and it's all right. And it's just is. And so that would be what I'd say encapsulates it for me, is like, just let people have their experience. And it doesn't mean that you have to fix it or you have to change. And that's been, I've seen it in my parents and in my wife, where it's like, you are in pain because they're in pain. So you want to fix their pain so you're not in pain. And it's just this help me, help you, help me, help you. And it's like, just let it be. It's okay. Just regard and process. So that's the bow.
We say all the time that the connection codes are simple, not easy. They actually become easier. And I'm just amazed. And of course, I've shared this so many times. Phyllis and I would be disconnected for 3 weeks. That ain't easy. That is difficult. That is unbearable. And so now, and we haven't arrived, we're pilgrims on the journey, but we just don't miss that much. So it's a heck of a lot easier than it was. And we have a lot of fun together. Again, we've had so much trauma together and history, and, there's all these allergies with things, but it's pretty amazing and pretty darn easy overall. So I just want people to have that vision that the connection codes take some effort. Well, yeah, any exercise, any working out, but living healthily is a heck of a lot easier than being morbidly obese, having mega sugar content in your body. That's a tough way to live. Is it challenging to be aware of what you're eating and get to the gym or whatever you do for exercise? Well, yeah, I mean, it takes effort, but it's a heck of a lot easier than living this unhealthy lifestyle.
Yeah, I like to say, choose your hard. It's hard to be disconnected. It's hard to stay connected. Which one do you want? So,
Well, thank you, Elijah.
Yes.
And we do all of this.
Because you need this.
You deserve this.
So
let's do this.